Grace, mercy, and peace. Thank you for tuning in to the summer short of The Gathering Place. We appreciate that you watch, that you like, that you share, that you talk about, that you comment. Tonight's lesson comes from a very familiar passage of scripture. It is the story of David before he was king. It comes from 1 Samuel 17, verse 44. And the Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field." Many of us all of us have faced some sort of giant in our lives, something that we thought was going to take us out, something that we looked at and thought that it had the capability, it had the power, the potential, it had all that it needed to take us out, be it someone physical, a lie, or something that we had done, a decision, a mistake, or whatever. But there was some kind of situation that we thought had the ability to change our lives or take it and destroy it as we know it. Here it is, we have the text of David that has been chosen by God to be anointed king just one chapter earlier. He's there in the presence of his brothers. His brothers have realized that. And then after that, he goes back to the field to do the work that he's supposed to do. He's out there tending to the sheep. His father sends him down to take his brother's lunch, who's there, and they're all paralyzed with the army of Israel. They're all there because there is a giant. There's one that has been mocking and making fun of their God, and one that says, "Give me someone to fight." Here it is, this giant has the whole army of Israel paralyzed. They're all sitting there and they don't know what to do. And here comes this young, ruddy boy with a fair countenance. And he's there because his father has sent him to take lunch to his brothers. He's there and he sees what's going on. And he realizes something in himself says that this is a giant that you can handle. There's something about knowing who you are in God, knowing that there is a challenge or there is something that is standing before you, and know that you can take it down. Remember, just a chapter earlier, he had been chosen to be king. He knew that there was something greater than where he was. There was something greater than this giant that's standing in front of him. And there, his brothers, the whole army, they're all paralyzed. And when he comes down and he makes his proclamation that he is going to take the head of the giant off, his own brother says to him that you're full of pride. You're down here just to see. His brother knows some elements about him. His brother knows some things about who he is, and his brother has some thoughts about him. And his brother is trying to discredit who he is and tell him that this giant is something that is out of his league. But there's something inside of David that knows that he is able to take down this giant. There's something, because he says the same thing over to Saul, and Saul has called him to himself, and he asked him, you can't do this, you're young, you're youth. And David goes through his resume about the lion and the bear. But he says, I'm going to take this giant. He stands before Goliath, and Goliath says to him, "Am I a dog that you come to me with staves?" And in this text, Goliath speaks to him. Goliath is the image or the icon of destruction. He's the icon of the final thing. He's the icon of that you cannot make it past this. He's the icon that this lie just might take me out. It may ruin my reputation because the whole army is here to see. Goliath is the icon of failure. And David within himself speaks out of himself because he knows who he is. For the next minute, I want to talk about a subject that I saw actually on Facebook. A friend of mine posted to someone else to encourage them that when you've been called to the nation, a local lie has no power. David knew that this giant had the ability to annihilate someone else. This giant had the ability to take somebody else out. This giant could have killed most of the men in their army. But there's something different about David. David has just been anointed to be king, meaning that God has favored his future. He has been called to something bigger than this situation. I want to remind you that there are some things that you're facing right now, but remember that God has called you to a bigger platform. And although what's standing in front of you may be bigger than you've ever faced before, if God has destined a future for you, you cannot die before you get there. There's an African proverb that I love that I recite to myself all the time. The lion never turns when the small dog barks. In other words, this small dog is making all kind of noise and ruckus. And it could get the attention of other people who are afraid of it. But the lion knows who he is. And he knows that this small dog might yap, but it doesn't have the power to take me out. Just like our text, we all know what happens, that David stands before him with 5 smooth stones and a slingshot, and he brings down the giant. He cuts the giant's head off. This giant that had the power to take out anybody else, but he could not take out David. I want you to know that you may be facing what have taken other people out, but it will not take you out, because the lie, a local lie, does not have power when you've been called to the nations. I pray tonight that this word has encouraged you, that you hold your head up, and that you walk out with confidence, knowing that God is on your side. God has equipped you to be who you need to be, and the giants that you're facing must come down, and you will hold their head up in victory. God bless you is my prayer. Thank you for joining us for the No Judgment experience at the Gathering Place. We appreciate you. Stay connected with us. Join us each Sunday morning, 9:45 right here, or Tuesday at 7 p.m. If you would like to be a financial blessing, you can do so by Cash App $TGP 3500 or on Givelify, the Gathering Place, Raleigh, North Carolina. You be blessed.